introverted noise. Hurry up, Daddy.
Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. Here, once again, got the full crew, got a lot to talk about, so we really gonna get right into it. QB1, my man, how you doing? How you been?
Everything good, man. The Vikings are on a win streak, so I'm happy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Myles, my man, recovered from the flu, back with us at full strength. How you doing, my man?
Doing good.
How's Teddy looking?
Teddy's looking good. He's, doing puppy things. Got a lot of energy.
Yeah. I keep forgetting. He looks so big. I keep forgetting he's still a puppy.
Yeah.
Sexy Prince. My man, how's that workout going? Yinka's over here on his Terrell Owens, doing some sit-ups in the driveway, getting ready for the pod real quick. Prince,
that's funny. That's funny, man. No, people were trying me today at work, so I need to get out this much needed aggression out on something. So
get a punching bag or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, take it out on the abs. I feel you. All right. Okay. Well, I mean, we got some stuff to talk to that might, help you get out some more much needed aggression because Adam Thielen, little known receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, apparently, according to the New York media, has been a topic of conversation. I guess on Vikings Twitter for a little while here by some things that Yinka, you kicked up a little bit of dust, got people a little bit worked up. And so we had a poll yesterday, it's wrapping up here shortly. Is calling Adam Thielen the best slot receiver in the NFL accurate, disrespectful, or other? So far, accurate is running away with things. So, accurate, I believe at last check had 76% of the vote. Disrespectful is coming in at 18%. So 18% of people who have responded believe that it is disrespectful to call Adam Thielen the best slot receiver in the game. And then another 6% chose other. And largely for the people who did comment there, they either commented or quote tweeted that it should just say Adam Thielen is the best wide receiver in the game, bar none, point blank, period. And that putting slot receiver on there is unnecessary and is insulting to Adam Thielen and his level of skill. So, Sexy Prince, we're going to talk about this topic real quick, but I'm going to let you go ahead and kick off this discussion and maybe try to clarify some of the points that you were trying to make. I heard Arif talk about it on Norse Code as well. But I want to give you an opportunity to maybe clarify the points you're making before we get into some of this, Adam Thielen discussion and, the disrespect or lack of respect or, whatever might be going on or people that feel might be going on for Adam Thielen across the NFL community. So, Sexy Prince, what were you trying to say with your comments about Adam Thielen in relation to, Stephon Diggs and their assignments and usage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Sexy Prince? We lose you?
He's finishing his set real quick.
He's finishing up a set, 102. Okay, well, Myles, we lost Sexy Prince. Yeah, and we actually did lose Sexy Prince. These folks done scared Sexy Prince off. You don't even want to talk about it anymore after y'all blew up his mention. So we'll just keep this thing moving right on. Oh, nope, there he is.
Sorry,
Sexy
my bad,
Prince.
y'all.
Okay,
Wouldn't let me take me out. Wouldn't let me take it off mute. So my bad.
Super set. I understand.
Yeah.
So clarify, help us understand. What were you trying to get across when you were kind of talking about Adam Thielen, in that conversation that ended up with you being called racist and all sorts of other foolish things when you didn't bring up race at all. But that's another thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot about myself. And one, I'm a racist, so I need to get that out of the way. It's the demon that I need to continue to work through.
We've been
the second one is I've learned way more about tantrums than I thought I would ever learn in a given span of a weekend or a couple days. Fellas, when Twitter tells you, after you put out a tweet, when Twitter tells you, hey, you're getting a lot of traffic from your Twitter feed, do you want to turn off notification? you should probably always say yes. I've been trying to go viral for a while, and I didn't know that this was going to be the thing that apparently got me to piss off a lot of people. But essentially what I was trying to say is I saw Myles on the timeline talking with another, kind of friend of the pod, and they were kind of going back and forth about, Adam Thielen, OBJ and Stephon Diggs. And they kind of talked about like how, OBJ's antics sometimes on the field are kind of, a little over the top, and how Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs would never do those kind of tantrum-like antics.
And can we reiterate that we said that it was on the field antics? That's what this was.
on the field antics, nothing off the field, because I think we're all in line with the way that sometimes OBJ behaves off the field. It can be a little bit, that interview, all that stuff. But that's notwithstanding. The topic of conversation was on the field antics and tantrums and all other stuff. So what I did is, because I thought it was hyperbole to say they would never do it, I went into my GIF cache and I was like, okay, let me see what I can find. So I typed in Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Didn't find as many GIFs of Stephon Diggs kind of going over the top or whatever, but I found 4 to 5 different GIFs where I saw Adam Thielen throwing his mouthpiece or his helmet, his this, his that, and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, so Adam Thielen, who I consider to be a passionate player, does this too. So to me, I was never at any point comparing people who think that OBJ is this diva, this, that. I was just merely saying, like, hey, if you have a problem with this behavior, I think you should have a problem with this behavior across the board. If you ever see it from a player, it should probably spark some kind of outrage. But apparently, tantrums are supposed to be contextualized. There's a frequency in which you can have a tantrum. There's severity. There's a spectrum in which you can have a tantrum to be considered a tantrum. And I didn't know all this stuff. I just thought if it's considered a tantrum, it's a tantrum. So, I mean, it was a learning lesson for me, apparently, because I just thought if you're throwing your helmet on the ground, if you're tossing your mouthpiece, if you're visibly upset on the sidelines, that, that's a tantrum, which I think is okay. I think OBJ or Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown, whoever, if they care about what they're doing and they're passionate about what they're doing, it should kind of piss them off when they're not performing well or something doesn't happen or something happens that they don't like. And I'm okay with that across the board. Some people aren't, and that's their prerogative. But I'm just saying, like, I think if you have a problem with it, you should have a problem with it across the board. And there shouldn't be a caveat like, oh, well, I can understand that Adam Thielen was mad because he was taken out because of concussion. I can understand that, he's just really passionate because he made a mistake on dropping the ball. I'm just like, well, OBJ gets like that too. He gets mad when he drops balls. He gets mad when, he doesn't make that play. He gets mad when his team is getting blown out. So, I mean, when you add that context into it, I mean, I would think I could understand why a dude would feel like he needs to punch a net or he needs to, do push-ups or he needs to, like, throw his helmet or whatever the case is. But that's just me.
I mean, if Eli Manning was my quarterback, I'd be upset too.
All in all, that's what I was trying to get across. That I think that behavior is okay, and I don't think there's any reason why we can't put one player next to another. But I mean, if you already dislike OBJ, I can understand that how that bias can effectively, kind of ruin those two players being juxtaposed. I didn't interject race, and you guys know that I have no problem talking about race on the timeline, but I didn't interject that because I knew that the race conversation as it pertains to this topic is a lot more nuanced and it's a lot more difficult to have than on Twitter with 240 characters. So that's where I was trying to come at.
It's 280, and all I heard you say is that you are racist.
Yeah,
and,
I did. I am.
You are racist. But I think I want to move this along. I wanted to give you that opportunity, but you brought up, I think, 2 perfect players for us to discuss in this conversation, which is Adam Thielen and Odell Beckham Jr. Because kind of where the conversation is gone now, I mean, that jumped off. Now we have Adam Thielen. He's breaking records in the modern era, most games to start with 100 yards. And so the talk is now started amongst primarily Vikings Twitter, but I've seen a few things here and there in the national media saying Adam Thielen is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Myles Gorham, you are our wide receiver kind of person, our guy that we go to for that in-depth analysis about the wide receivers. And so I'm looking for your perspective on this. Is Adam Thielen the best wide receiver in the NFL right now?
Whew, you put me on the spot on that one. No, I mean he's definitely playing like he's the best receiver in the league right now. I mean, I'll always have a hard time saying that he's the best right now because I don't think he's better. I don't think he's better than Antonio Brown. I don't think he's better than Julio Jones. I don't think he's better than Nuke Hopkins or AJ Green or Odell. Some of those guys. Those are the names that I don't think Adam Thielen's better than those guys right now. Do I think he's playing better than those guys? Yes, or at least he's like up there. He's in that upper echelon where like any of those guys right now at playing at as high as the levels they are, like you can't go wrong with any one of those players right now. So if someone wants to say that Adam Thielen's the best receiver in the league right now, I wouldn't be upset with him for saying it because of the way he's playing. Do I personally think he's that? No, but I think he's playing at that level right now, I'm all for you saying it, and and I can understand why people would say it because he's definitely made a case for it.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that from your perspective is based on how he's playing right now. He's played his way into at least the tier with those guys. But for you, the order might be something a little bit different. But if someone has the order a little bit different than you, you're not gonna, die on that hill because they're all in a similar tier of I guess play quality at this point. Would that be fair?
That's exactly it. So like at that point, when you get to a level of some of these guys, it literally all just becomes about preference. What are some of the small things that one guy can do that another guy can't do? So it just all becomes preference at that point. Like that's why when you see people posting their top 10, top 15, top 20 receivers in the league, you see so many people interchange guys because, like I've seen Devontae Adams lower on some lists than others. For me personally, he's a top 10 wide receiver right now, but some people might not see him as that. They might see him closer to 15 or 12 or whatever that number is because they're not as big of fans. There's like little things that he doesn't do that other guys do better. So I totally get it. I'm not upset when people think that. Like I said, I understand it. So so I'm all for people having their nuances and their specific players that they like because I get it because I'm the same way.
So the last thing that I guess we'll know two things. But the major point that I wanted to get to JR here, because one of the things that also came up where, I mean, I don't understand why it's become like a negative or a pejorative to refer to Adam Thielen playing a lot of his snaps in the slot. From my perspective, that's just it's a usage thing. He plays a large percentage of his snaps in the slot. So calling him, a slot receiver is just talking about the fact that he plays a lot of his snaps in the slot. I guess from your perspective, are we beyond the point where, like, I know that back in the day, the slot was kind of where you put like little dudes who are quick and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe there's people still have that in their head, but I guess, could you break down for us a little bit of like why a guy like Adam Thielen would be put in the slot based on his skill set and what the Vikings are doing with him to take advantage of the matchups, et cetera, that he might be getting in the slot versus, I guess you will say, the traditional outside number one wide receiver that most of us grew up with kind of thinking of as the wide receiver. Adam Thielen's clearly the person through whom the offense is running right now. He's just not playing on the outside the way that, Calvin Johnson or Andre Johnson would have done back in the day.
Yeah, so Wes Welker was the guy that really started that whole movement as far as putting the lesser athletic guy that had vertical limitations on the outside because they couldn't win consistently. The Patriots made him famous with that slide him inside and creating those mismatches on the inside because he was just quicker and faster than those linebackers and those nickel corners that were covering him in the slot. And he wasn't 6'2" or 6'3", and they couldn't put him out there on the perimeter because he just couldn't consistently hold up and win at the catch point on the outside, but put him inside somewhere where you can find the holes in those zone coverages and also create those mismatches in man coverage against those linebackers and nickel corners I alluded to earlier. And now NFL teams are really moved out of that mold, and now the slot is used more as mismatches and putting your most athletic or your most gifted route runner because now you're creating even a bigger mismatch. And Sean Payton with the Saints, with how he uses Michael Thomas as a prime example of that. Michael Thomas is a guy that can win on the outside, but he can also transition in the slot and use his big body to post up those interior defenders as far as those linebackers, those safeties that are trying to match up against him as well. So the slot receiver is now more used as a mismatch as opposed to guys that can't consistently win on the outside. And that's what we're seeing with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has the gifts and the athleticism to win on the outside, but he's even more valuable on the inside because he's such a gifted route runner and he can win at all three levels of the field, the short, the intermediate, and the deep areas. And that's something John DeFilippo has done a great job of scheming him and just working around his strengths right now.
So I guess, last question for you. And again, I guess we'll just put everyone on the spot at least one time. I guess when you look at, I know you evaluate, tape, this is your thing. It's what you like to do. Like when you're breaking it down, if someone was to say, because I've seen this be something that people get upset about as well. If I say, teams are scheming to stop Stephon Diggs from beating them deep, which is creating more favorable mismatches for Adam Thielen, is that statement A, an accurate one, and B, from your perspective, one that is taking anything away from the performance that Adam Thielen has put on season to date?
It's not taking anything away from Adam Thielen, and I think you're spot on with that. Teams are rolling their coverage to Stephon Diggs and trying to take him away, and they have a lot of respect for Stephon Diggs. Now, what you have to understand about defense is that you can't double team more than one person. And that's what we've seen so far. A lot of teams are rolling their coverage and shadowing Stephon Diggs with a certain person, and even still rolling that safety over top of him because he's known as that deep threat guy that can open the game up at any moment in time. But as a result of that, now you're seeing Adam Thielen getting one-on-one coverage in the slot. We saw it against the Eagles with Jalen Mills, and when they had Sidney Jones on him as well. So he's getting those mismatches in the slot. And also, teams aren't able to roll that safety over top of him. And when they are, or when they do roll that safety over top, it's too late, and he has already won his matchup, depending on where that design route is designated to go.
Okay. All right. I like it. I feel like we've covered all the points. Were there any points? There's one more point. And, Myles, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I feel like it's the appropriate place for this question to go. So I was listening to the Norse Code podcast. Shout out to Arif and James. And a theory that was floated when also some of the Saxy Prince discussions were brought into that pod is that there's a potential that reverse racism is what's stopping teams from putting their number one on Adam Thielen. What say you, Myles Gorham?
What?
That opposing defenses and defensive coordinators are not giving Adam Thielen the appropriate amount of respect.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is Caucasian. And thus, even though he's balling out thus far, because he and Diggs are of a similar overall skill level, they are going towards Stephon Diggs versus Adam Thielen because Adam Thielen is a white man.
I'm gonna take it away from that. But this goes back to the preference thing. So like defenses, what are defenses more afraid of? Are they more afraid of the guy that's gonna catch passes within 10 to 15 yards, or are they more afraid of guys that are gonna catch passes 30 to 40 yards, 50 or 30 plus yards downfield? Are they afraid of the guys that are a little bit better with the ball in their hands and make people miss or harder to tackle? Like that, to me, that's the only difference between Diggs and Thielen right now is the fact that and why I believe defenses are shading over to Diggs, or they're putting their best corner, or they're doubling him, is the fact that Diggs has a little bit more of the down. He's more of a downfield threat. He's more of a dynamic playmaker in the sense that he's a little bit better with the ball in his hands. He can make people miss, and he's harder to take down. And you can see it in the offense when they get Stephon Diggs moving and they put him in the backfield, they motion him all around. They're creating plays for him. So when they're creating plays for him like that, they want to get the ball into his hands near or around the line of scrimmage or downfield, because getting the ball in his hands, he can make people miss, whether it's in the backfield or downfield. Being able to make people miss is an important trait for someone like Stephon Diggs. And him being able to do that, to me, just means that the defenses are a little bit more afraid of not letting that happen to them. So they're more willing to accept the intermediate routes by Adam Thielen to beat them than the deep routes by Stephon Diggs, because explosive plays change games. They make things so much different for teams and for outcomes of games. Not that, and this isn't to say that Adam Thielen's not having a major impact on this team, because we know he is. It's not a slight at him in any way from what I'm trying to say, not what defense are doing, because defense are disrespecting the hell out of him. Because
why do you hate Adam Thielen, Myles?
Right, like oh man, no, but like for real, like it's blasphemous to put a linebacker on Adam Thielen, to put a safety on Adam Thielen. Like it's crazy. Like imagine going into a defensive, like going into your meetings, preparing against the Vikings, and you play a base defense, and you see Adam Thielen in the slot and being like, oh hey, outside linebacker, go ahead and cover him. It ain't no thing. Like whatever. Like come on now. Like that's stupid. That's just negligent. So I don't know. I'm wondering if defenses are going to start shifting. I'm not saying they're going to completely leave Diggs one-on-one, but I'm wondering if they're going to start shading things a little bit more, maybe more too high or something like that to help take away some of that. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure what they could do, but it's pretty crazy right now.
Yeah, and last question on this before we get moving, JR. So just because I guess Myles brought it up there, and it's something that I was thinking as well. Is it just generally speaking more difficult or more challenging for a defense to double a guy that's in the slot?
Yeah, I think it is, because there's just so many different places that they can roam. Now, if you're doubling the guy on the outside, they're really limited to that side of the field unless they run him all the way back across the field, which is something teams don't do a whole bunch of. But if that guy is in the slot, he really has a three-way go. He can go vertical, or he can go left or right, or they can even throw bubble screens behind the line of scrimmage or some type of tunnel or perimeter screen of some sort. So there's really a four-way go that he can have, as opposed to using that extra defender, which is the out-of-bounds line for guys that are on the outside. And it's very challenging because those safeties have to cover so much ground when a guy is in the slot. And also, we know being a nickel guy is very difficult because of the change of directions, or the various directions that slot receiver can go. So it's very difficult.
All right. There we go. I think all angles have been covered with this, with the Adam Thielen and Yinka's horrid racism towards him. But okay, let's keep this thing moving. And this will be a quick conversation, JR, because I feel like we're all probably on a similar page here. But Nick Bosa foregoing the rest of this season to get himself ready for the NFL draft. What are your thoughts? And I guess what are the thoughts that are rippling through the draft community about this? And is this a trend where we should expect to see a bit more of as time goes along here?
It's not a trend. His situation is a little different because he did suffer an abdominal injury that is going to sideline him for 10 to 12 weeks. And his dad was on Sirius XM radio last night saying that doctors didn't expect him to come back until December. And they just thought the risk outweighed the reward in that situation. There's just no reason for him to come back and risk injury again when the college football playoffs will be starting right about around that time, the following month in January. So he didn't have anything else to prove at Ohio State, because what he's put on film so far this year has been phenomenal, and he's probably going to end up being the number one pick, whichever team does end up getting that draft pick. So he doesn't owe Ohio State anything, in my opinion, and I think he made a great decision. And it's just up to him now to get healthy and chase the money, which I think was the right decision, and the decision that he did end up making.
Yeah, and what you did mention, like, hey, we're going to debate this on the pod, because I jokingly responded to your tweet calling him selfish. I do not, in fact, believe that he is selfish. I think it's the right decision for you. I can't remember what segment. I think I was watching it on my phone, so it was probably something on Twitter. But why do people go to college? They go to college to get themselves set up for their careers. His career is in the NFL, so he's doing the right thing to get himself ready for his career, get himself prepared. Thank you, Ohio State. He's done his time, done his duty for the school, and go on and get that money. Clean up that Twitter feed, but go on and get your money, man. All right, so that was it. Nothing really to debate there, because we all agree. Cardinals game recap. JR. I mean, your QB1, Josh Rosen, out there against Mike Zimmer's, can we call them Zim Reapers again? I mean, they played pretty well, but the Zim Reapers, what were your thoughts in that game? I know you couldn't watch it live, but I'm sure you've watched it a couple times since then. What was your thoughts, and I guess break down the game for us? What'd you see?
Yeah, I thought the defense played really well. They finally started to look like themselves again and feeding off what we saw against the Eagles. And they're getting better every single week. They're starting to settle down into their own and starting to show glimpses of being that defense that we saw from a week ago. Danielle Hunter was phenomenal. I think he could have had 4 sacks in that game. He just didn't get home on some of them. He just didn't finish the quarterback on the ground. In some occasions, he ended up getting 2, but he could have had plenty more. Anthony Barr, I think he had his best game of the season by far. He was disruptive not only as a linebacker, but as a pass rusher as well, which I think is starting to be a position that he's feeling more comfortable at right now. So it's really great to see him build off what we saw against the Eagles and also bounce back from his play early on in the season, especially against the Rams, where he just had a horrid game filled with miscommunications and misalignment. So I thought the defense played really well. It was good to see Anthony Harris get in the mix as well with an interception, who I think is going to end up being a starter for this team down the road if they are able to retain him after this year. I thought the offense played decent for the most part. It was really good to see the running game get back on track because we haven't had a 50-yard rusher this year. Latavius Murray stepped in for Dalvin Cook and had a great game. He hit holes very nicely. The offensive line opened up some really good holes for him. And it was, I thought Brian O'Neill did okay for the most part. He still has this.
We'll take that. We'll take okay. We'll take it.
He played okay. He held up. He held up much better than I thought he would. Rashad Hill, he was up and down. I don't think he is a left tackle, and hopefully Riley Reef is able to come back soon to where Rashad Hill can be that backup swing tackle if they do end up keeping Brian O'Neill as the starter at right tackle, which seems like that they are going to do because everyone knows that he is the future after picking him in the second round. Adam Thielen was phenomenal. Again, the Cardinals really had a game plan of taking Stephon Diggs out of the game, which they pretty much were successful with doing. They didn't shadow him for the most part. Patrick Peterson did shadow him a little bit, but Steve Wilkes' game plan is based around zone concepts. So they zoned Stephon Diggs out of the game by rolling the covers to him a lot, but that opened up a lot of things for Adam Thielen, and he had a phenomenal game. So it's definitely something to build off of, and I'm really looking forward to see how they travel on the road and going against this really young and hungry Jets team, who I think is very talented.
All right. Myles, I guess from your perspective, were there any big takeaways from the Cardinals game? And one of the things, I guess, you've obviously played football at a higher level than many, JR as well. But this felt in many ways like a get-right game for the Vikings, especially as it pertained to the run game, because as bad as the Vikings have been, running the football, the Cardinals have been even worse at stopping the run. When something like this happens, where you kind of get to play against a team that's that much worse at the thing you're struggling is that something that's going to carry over, or are the Vikings going to go back to being kind of the Vikings we've seen earlier in the season when it comes to running the football against this more stout line from the Jets?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a confidence thing when your offensive linemen can build that confidence in the run game. They feel, I don't like the word like they feel tougher, but like it's just more of a confidence booster, right? So they want to make sure that it's something they know they can do. Being able to actually translate it to a game is super important. So I think it could help in a little bit of ways, but we know the deficiencies the Vikings offensive line have in the run game. So I'm not so sure how much it'll translate to this week, but it's never a bad, like last week wasn't a bad thing, right? It brings that positive ability, and it shows on film that like, hey, here's where we can be successful, and where areas we could probably continue to try to work and get better and improve in these certain areas that they weren't doing in the past against teams like the Rams, who have Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald. So being able to play a team like the Cardinals, who have given up quite a bit of big runs throughout the season, it's definitely a confidence booster for this offense, and I think it's just going to help them. It's going to help. I think the first 15 plays of the game script against the Jets, they want to probably control the clock a little bit more. They don't want to give the Jets too much, just for the fact that they have explosive players on their offense. So like people like Robbie Anderson can get downfield, and the Jets have shown the ability to throw downfield. So you want to be able to slow the clock down. You want to make this more of like a slower tempo type of game. So that's my guess as to why as to where this could help translate into the Jets game.
Okay. All right. Like that. Saxy Prince, from your perspective, what were your big takeaways from the Arizona game?
Yeah, I mean, the bird's eye view was definitely nice. And when I mean bird's eye view, I mean literally in the sky. But
Come on, stop fronting. We know you were sitting on the 50-yard line.
did. But no, it was great. A lot of the points that the guys kind of mentioned, rolling coverage over to Diggs, that's something I was actually paying attention to. Adam Thielen will continue to eat just because he's playing at such a high level. One thing I did see,
it's too late, Prince.
Yeah,
it's too late. You can't just throw those nice things about Adam Thielen. You hate him and you're racist. There we go.
Danielle, the one thing I do have to mention is Danielle Hunter. I know that on screen obviously it looks like he's dominating, but I mean the way in which he's dominating and how destructive he is on play after play after play really popped out to me on the field. Whereas I don't think I would have seen that had I just been watching at home, or if you obviously review the tape, you can see all 22, you'll see a little bit more so. But he was like every play was flashing. You could tell that he was just beating his man or his guy, just like what you could tell he was having a really long day with Neil Hunter. I think the moves, the pass rush moves that he's learned, just the ability to use his arms and his strength to his advantage has evolved his game so much more so than when we saw him when he came in as a rookie. So his maturation has just been fun and exciting to watch. It's really mostly what I had to add into that.
Okay, well, while I got you here, Prince, we got to talk about your favorite subject, which obviously is, those running backs. And, Dalvin Cook, we thought he might play. He's going to be on a pitch count, went out to warm up, maybe tweak something, wasn't going to play, came back this week, wasn't in practice today. First, what are we doing? What from your perspective, what should we be doing with Dalvin? And that's it. We'll start with that. What should we be doing with Dalvin Cook at this point? And when do you expect to see him on the field again? Well, once again, we give Prince. Oh, yep, Prince.
Was that to me? Okay.
That was for you, man. That's for you.
That was to me. I know we briefly talked about it in our group chat, but I'm actually a proponent of just putting Dalvin Cook on IR. I mean, I know that we won't have his abilities for a few weeks and whatnot, which becomes frustrating after having the guy out for only having him for 4 games last season. But I mean, I just think with hamstring injuries, they can be such a lingering issue. With him, you get him on the field, get him a couple plays, even if it's on a pitch count, he's going to re-aggravate that and just going to keep being an issue. So you just get him off the field, let him rest. I mean, 8 weeks. I mean, it is a long time, but I think that he needs it, especially if we're going to make this playoff push at the, kind of the end. So I'm a proponent of put him on IR and let him come back.
All right. That seems extreme from my perspective, but I'm going to go rapid fire. Myles, what are we doing with Dalvin Cook? Or what should we be doing with Dalvin Cook?
Just let him rest until he's 100% ready.
Okay. IR, no IR.
I don't see why you need to put him on IR. What would it like? Who are you going to bring? Like, what are you going to bring in to change it? Like they don't have any money anyways. Whoever you bring in, they kept 5 running backs on this roster. So you're not bringing another running back. You're not going to bring in anybody that's going to provide anything in terms of value. So I wouldn't want to bring in somebody to pay that's not really going to do anything or contribute. So just let him sit.
All right. JR, what about you? What are we doing with Dalvin?
Just let him sit and rest that hammy until he gets fully healthy.
Okay. All right. Well, last topic before we get our guest here. And we went with running backs with Saxy Prince. Myles, we got to bring this one to you. Sad topic, but it feels only right that you would be the one to discuss this one for us here.
Oh no.
How you dealing with the loss of CB1, Mike Hughes?
It's been a numb week for me. I just haven't been hard to work. It's been hard to be positive this week. It's just a sad week. And then I see my guy, Deshaun Hamilton, is out with a knee injury now for the Broncos.
Oh no, you're the kiss of death, Myles.
It's a rough week right now. And I'm really having a hard time with Mike Hughes just because the big part of it is he was starting to come into his own. You were starting to see that confidence build. You were starting to see him starting to figure it out. And I just wanted to see that continue to grow. And, by the end of the season, who knows how much, how many strides he could have made for this defense, because he was playing a pivotal role. Trey Waynes was hurt. Mackenzie Alexander at one point was hurt and not playing well. So like you had Mike Hughes in there who can play both positions and played at a pretty decently, good level. And him to get hurt in his rookie season is really unfortunate. Only thing I've heard is that as a torn ACL. I'm hoping that it's a pretty clean injury and that he'll be good to go by start of training camp or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm just hoping for a speedy recovery.
And JR, how nervous should we be if Holden Hill has to play?
In the slot, we should
Just
be
at
all.
We don't. Oh Lord, no.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
because
not
as
ready
much
for
as
that.
people were upset about the Vikings, quote, reaching and taking a cornerback, not a position of need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, it's, from my perspective, probably the most important position. Coverage is the most important thing on defense. And Mike Hughes is already playing a lot of snaps. Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes have both been known to miss some time. So, yeah, I guess from your perspective, what do you expect to see now that Mike Hughes isn't a part of that rotation? How are the Vikings going to approach things from a coverage standpoint?
It's going to be by committee if we're talking about the slot. I know they've had Jaron Curse and Mackenzie Alexander rotating in the slot besides Mike Hughes in that area, and I expect it probably to be the same. Maybe they'll roll down Harrison Smith and play him in there sometimes from time to time, but it's definitely going to be by committee.
Okay. Marcus Sherrills might be back. Oh, boy.
No chance.
No, if you had to play somebody at nickel out of the corners that are left, obviously besides Mac and Jaron Curse, like he's the one to do it, though. He's the only one with the skill set to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I'd be happy with it. I don't think it would be in the team's best interest, but there really isn't anybody else that can do it.
Yeah, so I like that.
We're going to continue to see a committee of Mackenzie, Jaron, and then, depending on whenever Andrew Sendejo can get back, George Iloka, I bet too.
All right. Well, that's it. We've covered the early topics we wanted to get through here. We're gonna see if we can't find our guest and get the next part of this show going. So, listeners, bear with us here. We'll have our guest on in just a moment. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we did find our guest. We are thrilled to be joined with Connor Rogers. Connor, how's it going, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
Doing all right, guys. You guys doing okay?
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Connor.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, well, we'll get you started with an easy one here. I guess tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find your work.
Oh, no doubt. Well, I work for Bleacher Report doing the Stick to Football podcast with my co-host, Matt Miller. We've been doing the show for about 18 months and took it on the road this year, doing college tailgates, a little college scouting, covering the draft pretty much all year round. And locally, I've written about the Jets since I was in college, whether it was at Turn on the Jets, where I kind of got my start in writing, blogging, and just kind of stuck with it on Twitter, and for the Draft Network right now, because obviously with Sam Darnold in his rookie season, there's been a lot to talk about. So it's been fun. I've been, in sports media now for 4 full years. This will be I think my 4th NFL season in a row covering full time in college. So it's crazy that it's already gone by that quick.
Man, that's awesome.
Those tailgates sound rough too,
huh? Yeah. You gotta be real careful with those. I'm actually flying to LA tomorrow for the calmest, most boring one of the year. I will be solo going to UCLA, Arizona. When I booked it, I thought Khalil Tate would be a Heisman frontrunner, and I could not have been more wrong about that. So that will be the least eventful scouting trip I'll have in quite some time.
So, next question here. Why is the New York media so salty about Kirk Cousins?
I would like to know. I actually did Minnesota radio today, and I forget, God, I feel really bad. I forget what station it was right now. And they brought up a New York Times article that I unfortunately didn't even read. That's how, man, I've been in New York too long. Like, I'm 26. I'm from New York. I grew up in a Jets season ticket holding family when they had him. So I've seen it all at this point pretty much. And I think it's just kind of the local media trying to create a story, because I know a lot about the Kirk Cousins situation with the Jets. And I mean, sure, the team might be a little offended that he didn't come to them, but anybody with two eyes and a brain would have made the same decision he made. I mean, Minnesota is the more playoff-ready team. It's not even close. I think the Jets are very happy with getting Sam Darnold, with moving up to the draft and getting their number one quarterback to fall into their lap. I think both sides should just be pretty happy, and this thing's just not a story to me anymore.
Yeah, and I guess in the offseason, where were you on kind of the Kirk Cousins thing? Did you think the Jets should go kind of all out, do whatever they could to pay Kirk Cousins and get him into the fold?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good quarterback. At the end of the day, when a good quarterback hits the market and you've been a team that has had a black cloud over the quarterback position, which is the most important position, not in football, in all of sports, it's a no-brainer because it's sitting right there. All it costs is your cap dollars, and the Jets are sitting there with $100 million in cap space. So you can give Kirk whatever he wants, and then you could use your 6th overall pick and the 2 second-round picks to build out this roster. On the flip side, they took the money they would have given Kirk and made some free agent signings and had to trade both those second-round picks and go from 6 to 3, and you get Sam. So it's pivoting strategies from plan A to plan B. But plan A was always Kirk Cousins, and I can't fault the Jets for that because no matter what people say about his time in Washington, Kirk Cousins is a very, very talented quarterback, and that's really all it comes down to.
All right. And I guess, JR, did you have any questions about Darnold? I know that, Rosen was your number one, and we're seeing what's going on with that right now. But, Darnold was also someone that you were pretty high on during the process. And obviously, Connor does a bit of work around the draft as well. So I guess any thoughts there that you guys wanted to get into?
Yeah, Connor, JR here, man. Thanks for finally coming on. Great to meet you.
Oh, no doubt. I appreciate it, man. Always good talking to you.
No problem, man. We've had some talks about Sam Darnold in the past, and I actually went back and watched him against the Colts last week, and he had some really phenomenal throws in that game and really impressive. He was really good against the Broncos as well. He really should have had another touchdown to Robbie Anderson down the sideline. So he's making some really good decisions, and him and Jeremy Bates seem to be clicking. Even that his first game against the Lions, he had some really good throws in there and some rough patches in some games after that. So he's been a bit up and down, but these last 2 weeks, he's really come on. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on him so far, and what do you think about him to this point?
I mean, I've been really impressed. It takes a certain kind of athlete to be the face of a New York sports team. And, you obviously the pinnacle here has been Derek Jeter for a while with the Yankees. And then, David Wright was the face of the Mets with the Knicks as bad as they've been. Kristaps Porzingis has been a guy that seems to handle everything well. Those kinds of players are special. And I know Eli's been horrible and for a while, but there was a time here when Eli was able to handle the New York media and play at a high level. It takes a special kind of athlete to really play here, thrive here, and lead here. And the early returns on Sam, while, there's been 3 brilliant games and 3 kind of bad games, he's been even keeled throughout that. And I think that really shows the kind of person he is and kind of player he'll be, because let's not forget, guys, on draft night, he was 20 years old. He turned 21 years old in June. He's starting quarterback from the New York Jets. Really, he won the job in August. Everyone knew it. This was an opportunity that has been placed in front of other young quarterbacks here over the years, and they couldn't go out and secure it. And that's why the fans of this franchise have watched Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh McCown and, guys like that. So it speaks to how mature Sam is for a 21-year-old player. And I think on the field, because that's really what everyone cares about in this game coming up this weekend, there's been a lot of improvement. And I think the most important to me physically is the arm strength. I think coming out of school, that was one of my bigger questions on him. Will the arm get stronger? And will that deep ball continue to sail? And will his timing improve with receivers? You got to remember, this was a player that was not the starter out of the gate his sophomore year at USC, came in after a couple weeks, and his timing never really looked where it needed to be with a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. And then he had to go back to school, and the timing got a little better, but there was still some question marks there. That was a problem originally here with Robbie Anderson, and things are starting to click these last 2 weeks. The timing on the deep ball, the timing on the out routes, getting it out early, the touchdown to Terrell Pryor last week where the ball was in Pryor's chest as soon as he turned around in the end zone, and the sticks throws. So it's Sam, it's scary almost how early things have clicked for him, because I thought this would be a very, very long process. I thought what we saw against Cleveland and Jacksonville was going to be much of the season, a timid player that is really scared to make a mistake, and he's been anything but that in the last 2 weeks against Denver and Indy, and he's going to look to continue to keep it going. I think Minnesota is going to be more of a Cleveland, Jacksonville type struggle for him, because this is a talented defense, no matter which players they've lost recently. But at the end of the day, I think you're starting him this year on a trial season to go out and learn, and not to make the playoffs, but to really get a season under his belt like the Eagles did with the rookie Carson Wentz a couple of years ago. And the Jets are really happy with what they've seen, and I think everyone in New York is really happy with what they've seen.
That's great, Sam, Connor. Talking about Sam, outside of him being like, the obvious bright spot in the offense, what other bright spots of the offense would you say there are for this Jets team right now?
Well, it's a shame that Quincy Enunwa was going to be out for a couple weeks. He was playing at a really high level. He's a player that everybody knew for a while that he could be, the number one receiver on this team. I think it's as simple as that. And then he lost all of his season last year before it even began to a neck injury, came back this year and looked really, really sharp. I mean, he's still 26 years old, and, 22 catches this year already for almost 300 yards. He was kind of the possession go-to guy on screens, and now he's got the high ankle sprain, so he'll be out 3 to 4 weeks. This will be the first game he misses this year, and that's a bummer, but it just means Robbie Anderson's going to have to step it up. And when you look at Anderson, I mean, the list of guys that he's beaten over the top, somebody on Twitter is compiling it. I'll have to look it up. It's really impressive. He's a great vertical threat, one of the best vertical threats in all of the NFL. And it's wild because his first year, he was playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Fitz just couldn't get him the ball. It just simply wasn't there anymore. Plays with Josh McCown last year and has a phenomenal year. This year with Sam, the first couple games, we're sitting there saying, "Oh God, it's Fitz again." Where this is not a deep ball kind of offense. And now the last 2 weeks, he's really turned it on. 2 against the Broncos. He dropped one last week on a perfect throw from Sam against Indy, but still some really big catches. So when you're looking at the aerial attack, that's the guy in this game with the Enunwa out. Isaiah Crowell is banged up right now, but he's had some huge games running the ball. I think he still leads the league in yards after contact. I mean, when you get a guy on a 3-year, $12 million deal at the running back position, he's creating that kind of yardage after contact. That's incredible value. And when you look at Crowell, a lot of people are saying, well, why wasn't he like this in Cleveland? It wasn't the greatest situation for him there. I mean, coming out of high school, he was a 5-star super running back. It had some trouble in college and had to transfer and really rebuild his career. So I think we're finally seeing the Isaiah Crowell that people thought he could be in the pros. But much like Enunwa, he's battling an injury. So the biggest concern in this game is with the Jets secondary so beat up too, this is going to be a shootout. Can Darnold get into a shootout without any weapons? And that's why there's a lot of concern for the Jets in this game.
Speaking real quick, I just want to jump in and ask about Robbie Anderson, because I know you'd mentioned Quincy Enunwa is going to be out. Do you see him as, obviously we know how good of a deep threat he is, but do you see him as a high volume receiver, a guy that can be the number one focal point of an offense and maybe catch or see 10 plus targets?
In an ideal world, that's not what you want him to be, but he's shown a much more rounded out, route tree recently, where the deep out and even the slant, he's making catches on those routes where, year one, undrafted free agent at Temple, had some troubles at school, mostly academic troubles, and he's had his fair share of troubles with the Jets, but besides that, he's been on the field, and he was just a vertical guy. They drafted Devin Smith to be that. He never became that, and Robbie took that over. But as he bumped up along the depth chart, you're asked more of that, and he's shown it off. It's been impressive to see the kind of work he's put in the offseason to be that. So when you see Anderson, especially without Enunwa on the field, you're going to see the full route tree. You're going to see the comeback. You're going to see a slant. But, I mean, he loves setting people up on that comeback route to hit him over the top.
Hey, Connor. You mentioned a few things as far as like the defense, both teams. What do you feel it will be, kind of the keys as far as like the Jets defense that kind of slow down the Vikings offense?
Well, I think it's making sure the pressure gets home. I think when you look at this Vikings offensive line, and you guys could probably speak more to this than me, but from what I've seen, this is a beatable unit. And the Jets, while they don't have the true edge pass rusher, they'll dial up exotic blitzes, timing blitzes, stunts, twists. Leonard Williams and Henry Anderson have been really, really good, more so on the interior. And they'll get their outside linebackers and their safeties. Jamal Adams will blitz. It's a shame Marcus May is out because he can handle that too. But they're going to have to force Kirk Cousins to make some bad decisions. And with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs against backup corners, I mean, it's a matchup that it's really hard to envision the Jets overcoming the injuries they have on the back end, because I don't know if these young corners can hold up against those guys. I mean, especially Thielen, who's arguably been the most productive receiver in football this year, him and Michael Thomas, when you really are making the list. So they're going to have to get home to Kirk Cousins. They're going to have to throw some very confusing looks at Kirk Cousins. And I know he's a guy that can get the ball out quickly, but they're going to have to make him really, really rush.
Yeah, and Connor, I guess, how is the fan base, generally speaking, feeling about where the team is right now? Because, I mean, last season, there was all the talk that, going into the year, the Jets were supposed to be tanking, and then they actually were pretty competitive, maybe more competitive than some people wanted them to be, based on what you're seeing on Twitter sometimes. And then in this season again, they have a ton of cap space, young team, but again, they're out there and they're very competitive a lot of the time. Some games get away with them, but they're playing tough. They're playing like, how does the fan base, generally speaking, feel about the direction of things with the team now? And have, I guess, the Sharks stopped circling around, everyone that's involved in the brain trust for the Jets organization?
Well, I think rightly so. The Sharks have really calmed down on the front office, because a lot of people don't understand how the draft works when it comes down to it. A lot of people want to see you hit on 4 or 5 picks, and that's just not the case. I mean, there's just not a lot of draft classes that teams do that with. The most important thing with McCagnon in this front office is that they've hit on the first-round picks. I mean, the biggest concern amongst everyone was Darren Lee. Darren Lee's had a tremendous third season after a really, really tough first 2 seasons. I think he's tied for the league lead in interceptions right now, and as a linebacker, that really stands out to me. He's been so good in coverage. But, I mean, you look at their 4 first-round picks, Leonard Williams, Darren Lee, and Jamal Adams, those, and then Sam Darnold. But those 3 defenders right there are guys that are almost Pro Bowl caliber players, and they're all 24 years old or under. I mean, that's the kind of core you want to build. Now, there are some problems with this team. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, there is times where coaching has lost them games. They were up in Cleveland by 2 touchdowns, and the coaching fell apart. They sat in really a cover shell and let Baker Mayfield rip them up. They played a conservative rushing attack in the second half where they should have put the foot on the gas and closed out a game. And this should not be a 3-3 team. And it's hard to believe that. I mean, I think the Jets had the lowest Super Bowl odds for whatever reason. I can't explain it. I call it like I see it with the Jets. I mean, I'm well aware they're not a playoff team. I said this is a team that would win 7 games for the year, but the lowest Super Bowl odds, they're not in Arizona. They're not even in Oakland or in Indianapolis. And they're going out and beating teams like the Broncos and the Colts pretty easily, and the Lions. I mean, they absolutely destroyed the Lions. But coaching has let them down against teams like Miami and the Browns, and that's the difference between being a 500 ball club and a wild card contender. And that's why there are some questions about Todd Bowles and, more importantly, his staff. And those questions aren't going to go away when you have a roster that clearly shows they're putting them in almost every game. That's when you need coaching to step up and do its part. And we just really haven't seen that in the Bulls era yet.
All right. Before we get you out of here, because, I mean, you said it a couple of times, you're not really sure how they're going to hold up on defense to slow down this offense. But I guess from your perspective, what needs to happen for the Jets to go in? I mean, the Vikings are a slight favorite on the road going into this game. What do the Jets need to do from your perspective to pull off the upset?
They got to create takeaways. And I know this is something you guys want to revisit, but you look at the Bills-Vikings game. I mean, you got to make plays. You got to make plays on defense and special teams. It comes down to that. You got to get a couple strip sacks. I don't think Cousins is going to be prone to the interception in this game. I think if Jermaine Johnson, Marcus May, and Buster Screen were out on the back end, then maybe. But, with Darryl Roberts, a reserve corner, Perry Nickerson, a 6th-round rookie, Mo Claiborne's been solid, but he's just one guy. Jamal Adams plays in the box, and Doug Middleton playing free safety, another reserve. The passing attack really for the Vikings should light up the Jets. So if you're going to give up that kind of yardage, you better take away the football on the other end of the field. And I think they'll need 2 or 3 turnovers and probably a big punt return in this one to really pull off an upset.
All right. Well, last thing for you here. We need a bold prediction on this game and a score prediction from you.
Man, bold prediction. I mean, I don't know how bold this really is because I've been hammering home. I think Kirk Cousins throws for 350 yards in this game. I really do. I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if Thielen and Diggs both go for 100 yards. It wouldn't even be the slightest bit of a surprise to me at all. I think when it comes down to it, I said this earlier today on another show. I think the Vikings win something like 32-20. I do think the Jets, will be competitive on offense at times. I think they'll surprise people, but I just don't think their defense can hold up against this Vikings offense.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Connor, thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, you don't have any other questions, do you? Do you? Anyone? Okay. Well, I think that's it. Connor, thanks very much for coming out. And good luck at the tailgate, man.
Oh, no problem, guys. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the games this weekend, all right?
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks, Connor.
No problem. Later.
All right, great stuff there from Connor. And guess, guys, we'll jump right into your takes on this this upcoming matchup here. JR, from your perspective, Minnesota, New York, what should we be looking for? And do the Jets have any chance whatsoever in pulling off this upset?
Of course, they have a chance to win the game. I think they have to find a way to pressure Sam Darnold. I think that's number one for them. They have to find a way to get home and pressure Sam Darnold in some way, whether that's generating pressure with blitzes and playing man coverage on the back end of the defense, or if they just decide to rush forward. Now, Danielle Hunter and Linval Joseph playing in this game will make a huge difference on what they decide to do. If both of those guys are able to go, maybe they just sit back and try to play coverage on Sam Darnold. But knowing Mike Zimmer, he's not going to do that. He's going to play man coverage on the back end because he's not going to have much respect for the weapons that they do have on the perimeter, and he's going to want to heat up the blitzes on this rookie quarterback, similar to what he did against Josh Rosen a week ago. So generating pressure and creating turnovers on Sam Darnold. And I think they have to, not get the pass game going, but the passing game staying hot against the secondary because they are down some people. Tremaine Johnson, Marcus May, and Buster Screen are not expected to play in this game right now. None of those guys practiced this week. So Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs should have their way with the secondary. And as Connor alluded to, Perry Nickerson, a 6th-round rookie for the Jets, is going to start at nickel against Adam Thielen in the slot. So hopefully Thielen can have another big day.
Oh, boy. Go ahead and adjust the fantasy lineups real quick. Myles Gorham. I mean, I know JR kind of touched on the wide receiver part of it, but is there anything else you're going to be looking at in this game? Obviously, offensive line versus their D-line. I guess we'll have the advantage with the wide receivers versus their corners. I guess any other matchups or any other aspects of this game that you're really going to be focused in on?
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, we're pretty banged up too. Like Linval Joseph might be out. Obviously, Anderson Dale sounds like he's going to be out. And then obviously, and Everson Griffin. Then Danielle Hunter came up in the injury report today and didn't practice with a groin injury. So I get a little bit worried after hearing your best defensive linemen, like your 3 best defensive linemen, might all miss this game. They've been making do with Everson Griffin out, but I don't think they can do that without Danielle Hunter too, and without Linval Joseph. That's really tough. But where I worry the most is with that helps dial up pressure, but also the deep ball. I know Connor touched on it earlier, but Robbie Anderson getting deep on this defense, it worries me a little bit just because they've been prone to giving up some big plays this season, more so than they did in 2017. So that's something that probably worries me the most. I'm not too worried about their run game, especially if Isaiah Crowell is banged up. But I'm most worried about the deep ball to Robbie Anderson and making sure that we don't let him get loose, because those are big plays, explosive plays that you don't want to give up. And he's the only guy that really worries me about with doing that with all the players that they have injured. So making sure that he doesn't really have a big game is, I think, important. So with that, I'd say my score prediction would probably be...
Myles, you're jumping ahead, man. We got to get Saxy Prince's analysis of the matchups and stuff.
My bad. Yeah, I'll say Xavier Rhodes on Robbie Anderson's probably in the matchup. I'll watch a little bit. Pretty close.
Okay. Saxy Prince, what's the keys to the game for you? What are you going to be looking at? Every time. Stop doing push-ups and answer the question. We lost Yinka
I
again.
was trying to jump because I knew he was going to do this.
Well, fine, Myles. You can see the future, but it's still not your turn. JR, I need your bold prediction and your score prediction.
31-17 Vikings. I think Adam Thielen has 200 yards receiving.
Woo! Yinka's mentions will be trash if that happens. Myles.
Oh, hi.
Hey, bud. How you doing?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 35-24 Vikings. I think the Jets will keep pace a little bit. I think I will go with Kirk Cousins throws. Is it bold to say 4 touchdowns?
Feels pretty bold.
I'm gonna say he throws 4 touchdowns.
Okay. All right. Saxy Prince, you back or no? Yes, no. Okay.
You know me. I'm here.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we don't. We don't.
We know. It's only the second time. Saxy Prince.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Oh, hey,
I'm
how you
here.
doing, buddy? We need we need your score prediction, bold prediction, bro.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a closer game than the last week's game. But I still think the Vikings win this to the tune of 24-17. I think we see touchdown from each phase. I think we see an offensive touchdown, defensive touchdown, and a special team touchdown.
Okay. Who's getting the special teams touchdown?
Marcus Jones.
Okay. All right. Well, give me that score prediction again.
24-17.
17. Okay. All right. I feel like this game is also a bit closer than folks might be thinking. I say I'm gonna go with 24-20 for the Vikings. And Diggs and Thielen go for $150, and Latavius goes for over 75, which for our team is a big deal this season.
And we only scored 20. Oh my gosh.
Hey. Some things will happen. Things happen. Our offensive line isn't good. Sometimes people drop footballs and stuff. So, keeps us down in the scoring a little bit. But, at the end of the day, we cover. The gamblers are happy. We get the win. We're on the streak. And it's all good. So that's it. I think we covered everything we wanted to cover there. JR, I think I saw a tweet about a mailbag. We get another mailbag this week?
Yeah, it's up right now. Make sure you go check that out. climbingthepocket.com.
Yes, sir. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. And outside of your usual appearance with Andy, any other podcast or anything we should be looking for?
Nope, that's all.
All right. Myles, you've just been recovering, so, I don't think we have anything in the hopper for you at the moment. Saxy Prince. Football Machine, we got that. Let the people know once again where they can get tickets for it's not premiere, I guess, your showcase.
Well,
what's the industry parlance for what this is that people will be buying tickets to go see?
I mean, it is kind of a premiere of sorts, just because last time it was very closed off to family and friends and whatnot. Not that y'all aren't my family and friends, but I was only allowed 2 tickets, so give it to mom and dad. But yeah, this one's open to everyone. Absolutely, you can buy tickets. I have a link on my page. I'll retweet it again. But yeah, it'll be good. I'm also working on a Danielle Hunter piece right now. I think he's been playing lights out. I think I want to kind of really illustrate how well he's actually performing.
All right. Well, there it is. We made it all the way through. Gentlemen, as always, thanks for coming on recording tonight. Listeners, thanks for sticking with us. And we will be back soon. Y'all have a good one.